Get that with the dogs all the time. Yay,
So,
pet.
and right? Yeah, you guys are joining us as I'm like, bunnies, be quiet. If you don't know, if you've never had bunnies, um, they they're quiet. It's not like they bark, but they are destructive little tornado whirlwinds.
The image in my head of a barking bunny.
Well, you've seen bunnies yawn, right? They like
Yeah,
push their
yeah.
paws out and they're like ah, and they look like a little dragon.
Hmm.
So they could bark.
Yeah.
It
If they
won't
if
hurt
they
us,
desired, I'm sure it would happen.
right? But they are loud. Like they do stuff
Hmm.
between throwing their food bowls all around all the time, constantly. Which I don't get it. I look at other people's social media and they're like, bunnies have like this nice little food bowl, and I'm like, are your bunnies just not
It's curated. There's
personality? Like,
Yeah, no, their bunnies are like that's the 2 seconds that they were normal. It's gotta
yeah,
be.
right? And I'm like, okay, well, mine will be like, this bowl is empty, so I'm gonna pick it up with my mouth and bang it against the other one until you pay attention to me. I'm like, thanks for the information. That's their
Love that.
vibe. Once I had to switch their food because the food our store was out of food. This was during like the shortages of everything during like COVID. I had to switch their food. God forbid, I went from a healthy food to a healthy food though. I paid a good attention. They expressed their unhappiness with this by peeing in the food bowl.
That only hurts them.
They were so mad at me about it. Like, awesome. Yeah, so they have a lot of personality, and if you piss them off, they will just stomp their foot at you and just look at you and just stomp and look at you
Yep.
and just stomp like I'm mad. I'm like, I get it. You fluffy little ball of anger. I get
Oh, believe
it.
it or not, that's not our topic for the day, though
No,
we
it's
could we
not.
could
I'm
talk about
sorry.
it for a while.
Uh,
Yeah. So actually, Em, why don't
yeah.
you? Oh, by the way, welcome to the Alchemist Inkwell. This is
Oh
your
yeah, this is
spiritual
your
podcast
spiritual.
for grounding people. It's a spiritual podcast, folks, not an animal podcast. Sorry for
I
missing.
know. I was
Yeah,
just talking about it beforehand because between Krista's corgis and my bunnies that are always in the room, Callum's not in the room right now. It's they join us for this.
yeah. I mean, animals are a spiritual practice in and of themselves. Um, but today, Em, why don't you introduce the topic since you are the resident expert? Now that
Ah.
you have launched an incredible foundational course on this.
Thank you so much. So I really, really, first of all, appreciate you. Like, thank you for dedicating time to talking about it on the podcast. Um, I think it's super important. So basically, if you guys have been on my social media at all for the last week, you've probably heard me talk about this. Um, but you might still have questions, or maybe you don't know. And I think it's a cool foundational topic for everybody. So I'm not just gonna be like, this is what the course is, but also like gonna talk about like how you can use this kind of stuff and like help yourself. Um, so for this is like a field of study for me for like the last, I don't know, 10 years ish, probably more, where I got really frustrated very early on in my spiritual reawakening about how I couldn't communicate with the universe. Basically, I really hated the idea of like, oh, just wait for a sign. I'm like, fuck you. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do that. I want
I'm
the
not
sign when I
patient.
want. Yeah, like, I want to know what the sign is going to be, and I want to know how it's going to come through, and like I want to know all those things. And that's not always how it works, and I totally get that. However, I'm like, I'm gonna make a system. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna make it as work as possible. Which Kristen knows, creating systems is like my deal. So basically, what the course entails is it's called Harmony of Echoes, crafting your secret language with the universe.
I love that
Um,
name.
Yeah, isn't that cool? That made me really happy. Because that's what it is. It's a harmony of your echoes in the universe, and the universe's echoes back to you. And essentially, what you're doing throughout the course, it is a 7 module course. It's self-led. I think I may end up doing some sort of mentorship stuff on the course maybe in the future, but at this point, it's self-led, and I do recommend you just do the self-led version because you're going to get a lot out of it. It's super impactful. But basically, what you're doing is throughout the entirety of the course, you are crafting, I call it your lore book. I have mine right here. I won't show you the inside of it because it's super messy and super private, but that's what it looks like. Um, and in it, you basically figure out what signs the universe is already sending you, what signs you'd like the universe to send you, and then crafting your own signs, that kind of thing. And then what the heck you can even do with them. So it's literally foundationally building a language that you can use to communicate to the universe and have the universe actually communicate back in a way that's tangible, decipherable, and understandable.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like creating a cipher to the universe and figuring out actually how to communicate in a real way. So instead of just waiting for a sign, or instead of being like, oh, I hope, the universe sends me this, or was that a sign? I don't know if it was or not. By the end of it, you'll know.
Mhm.
You'll know. And you'll be able to be like, oh, that was that sign. Let me look it up in my book. Oh, it was this. Oh, it's totally about that thing. Could you actually send me something? Oh, there, the other thing is, and you can go back and forth, and it's literally a dialogue.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's the foundational part of it. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. And that is easily one of the like most frequently desired skills in spirituality. And I think one of the things that's like an unexpected benefit is that you end up having a conversation with your guides, the universe, whatever. It's like you're going through
Mhm.
couples therapy with
Yeah.
the universe and saying, hey, I need to be communicated with in a way that I understand. And I want to communicate with you in a way that you understand. How can we get on the same level here? Because I think it's
Yeah.
so common that people, and we all do this. Like I remember when I was in this phase of my growth as well, we put ourselves beneath some kind of unreachable pedestal that the universe is on, and therefore we will
Hmm.
never be able to understand. And that creates no communication. So I
Yeah.
love that you're doing this.
Thank you. And it's done in like, it's truly a way of like, it's a pictorial language that basically
Mhm.
you're creating. So think hieroglyphics, but
Mhm.
yours,
Yeah.
so, and it's, of course, if you guys know all this about me, but I don't ever just focus on just one of the clair senses. So it's like,
Mhm.
okay, maybe one of the signs you get from the universe is the sound of a specific bird. Okay, well, then what does that mean? And what has it historically meant to you? If you don't know, what does it mean now? How can you ask your guides or intuit that information and dive in and then list that actually out in your dictionary, basically? So that now when that happens, it will ping your brain because your brain has now latched onto it as something that is more concrete. So you can be like, oh, I think there's something with that. And look that up, and there's your universe message. That whole idea, because I think it's internalized Christianity, to be totally honest, of like, he is greater than I
Mhm.
concept. And that is just kind of in our society where the universe is literally like trying to talk to us all the time. But we don't see it or hear it or feel it or know it or understand it. Or maybe we're just not even initiating it because we didn't for so long. And then we're like, talk to me. And the universe is like, with what? Like, what do
Yeah.
you want?
The
And
universe is like,
it's
listen to me.
right. Yeah. It's literally like a combination of our free will and
Mhm.
our like fate, higher self,
Mhm.
universe style
Well,
perspective.
and I love what you're saying there too, because it's internalized modern Christianity. I really want to
Yeah.
find terms for this. Because like a passion of mine is, kind of reclaiming the mysticism of Christianity and like what it
Yeah.
actually was and what the Bible's actually saying and in the correct
Yeah.
translations. Because modern Christianity really is that problem where it's
It's new
unattainable
age.
or unforgivable. Yeah. So for anybody out there who's listening that's like immediately like, oh, bummer, it's not as much of a bummer as you think. Like
No.
it's the modern interpretation and ruination of the faith that is or was Christianity. I like we need terms for this. Speaking of
Hmm.
creating a language, that's a language that I'm working on myself. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of faiths are in the middle of this, separating
Hmm.
the nationalism that comes along with a religion
Yeah.
from the actual religion and the practice of it and the hey, love each other, that seems to be at the root of most of them, if not all
Hmm.
of them. Sorry for the mini rant there, but I think it really
No.
goes to show that you will be reclaiming and deconstructing the negative sides and reconnecting with whatever faith you align with even more when you create a conversation through something
Yeah.
like this course.
Yeah, it's the same way we talk about new age spirituality and we hate that. It's new age Christianity. It's the same
Yeah.
vibes, where it's like a, a stripped down, self-serving, not honored or holistic version of something.
Hmm.
So I completely agree. And I do just want to say this, and I've had to clarify this with my mom multiple times too. I don't hate God. I don't hate the Christian, like I do not hate the
Hmm.
church systems and things like that. I think they can be really, really beneficial and amazing. I do think that a lot of what we have now is incredibly corrupt and super messed up
Yeah,
in
a
so
lot of what's in the
anyways.
system should not be in the system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And scary.
Hmm.
And scary,
Hmm.
just genuinely scary there. But I can even say if there's parts, that's the benefit of creating the language with the universe too, because there's one whole module where we talk about drawing signs for your language from media and from myth
Mhm.
and from stories, because those are super easy. Those are some of the most easily recognizable signs and symbols you have. Like every time you think of, a specific character that vibes with you, you understand what that character means to you, and therefore you have a word and a definition of that word that the universe can then send you, just like that. If you need to claim it, you need to be like, this character, you can send me this character and I'll get what you mean, which is
Mhm.
the act of writing it down, is claiming it.
Yep.
But that's a really simple way to do it. But same thing with myth, which I consider Bible stories, etc., to be myth. And if there's certain things that you're like, man, I don't want to be fully separate from this part of my upbringing or whatever, and you're struggling to like bridge that gap, use it as myth that
Yeah.
guides you. Like that's you can use it as words in your language. You can use it as all sorts of different stuff,
Mhm.
because that's the gap bridger.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely. I remember to
mhm,
to really support this and in this context, first of all, you have your, Greek pantheon, which we consider myth, but also you have your, your Norse pantheon. We have a
mhm,
sort of pantheon in the Christian world too. We use archangels, we use
saints.
saints. Yeah, we have these archetypal representatives of certain topics that we can connect to. And I remember one time I was channeling for someone, channeling the energy of Jesus. And
Mhm,
I remember asking, because I'm getting into theology and like the historical accuracy and likelihood of this story and that story. I said, were you a real person? And the energy,
mhm,
the response was, it doesn't matter because I'm real because people talk to me. I'm real
mhm,
because, I am the expression of what people have made. And like we see this, one of the things that we're going to be doing hopefully in the near future is interviewing someone about the technique of shifting. People shift
mhm,
to Harry Potter world. It's real because it was created. And
mhm,
so whether or not there was a historically accurate person, there is the story. And the
mhm.
story makes it real enough because you get to make your decisions based on what would this figure in the story do? What does this figure in the story inspire? And that
Yeah.
goes across the board, across the beliefs. I hope that didn't sound too insulting. I do work with Jesus's energy very closely. So there's absolutely unconditional love there. But that is what I picked up on. And it made me feel like whether or not this person was real, I can still use this energy. And that goes for everybody. That goes for
Yeah.
all the energies.
Well, that's why we do high vibe fiction. It's the same.
Mhm.
It's the same energy, because everything does exist in energetic reality. It's actually out there.
Yep.
And so you're channeling it in and talking to them and calling that energy in, and that goes so across the board. It's a
Mhm.
really easy way of understanding the universe
Yep.
through story. Stories are the most human thing we got. Like
Yeah.
stories are so innately human. And then I will say in the last like honestly about 300 years, it's just been this pull away from seeing them as a like valid information source, where previously it was seen as a valid information source. So that's where we're like kind of moving back towards too, which I think is super important.
Mhm.
Again, that's what we do for storytellers. But anyway, yeah, so that's the idea. It's a super easy to navigate module, and we cover a whole bunch of things, or course, module by module, and you can do it at your own pace, but it covers everything from like signs you're already receiving, which like signs you're already receiving, you might be like, well, I think maybe sometimes I see repeating numbers. Cool. That's awesome.
Mhm.
I guarantee you've also seen a whole bunch of other stuff. I guarantee you've also heard other signs, whatever. And we really dive into how you can figure out what those things are. And you might be like, but I don't know what they mean. Cool, we work on that too, figuring out what they mean. Or you might also, have consistent big feelings or consistent certain things that you're like, oh, I really wish I had a word for this. The universe could communicate this to me when it's going to happen, or to validate this or whatever. So we kind of reverse engineer that concept as well. And then dive into like how you can use your words, because the benefit of creating a magic language is not just that you can speak it with the universe, it's also that you can do magic with it. That's
Yeah.
the other idea. So, how do you basically use the universe as a divination system for yourself with the messages that it gives you, or going on a walk and having a whole sentence come out of that walk of exactly what you need to do, or how you can use your symbols to activate certain things if there's an intention, or crafting. There's a whole video on crafting sigils. There's a whole video on scrying, fire or smoke scrying, which is just getting symbols out of fire or smoke to communicate with you, which does have a process to it, but
It's so
very
cool.
simple at the basis. That's one of the ways to do it. I mean, there's so many different ways. We talk about how to create a deck with your symbols, like your own personal oracle deck that you can then use to like actually give yourself readings with your language. Like there's so many different things, which is what language initially was, especially written language. It wasn't just so we could talk to each other, it was also so we could talk to the universe. So it is my hope through this course, those ancient pieces of language come to you and fill your heart the way they filled mine. And you know how much of a passion I have about channeled history. This is just kind of the next step of that.
Yeah, that was so beautifully said, by the way. I love that so much. Thank you for saying it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it cannot be reiterated or emphasized enough, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Just how important it is. Whether you're, my language is astrology. I talk to the planets. Your language is something that's specific to you and your guides. What does your guide
Mm-hmm.
represent? Do you do any deity work? Like, there's
Yeah.
so much you can get into. And I love that you're including tools like the
Yeah.
scribe. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that is going to feel magical. And so it's going to help people really integrate their own ability and power in equality with these energies, which is something we underestimate in ourselves so much.
Oh yeah.
Like I remember one of the first things that ever made me feel like, oh man, I'm actually capable of wielding energy and participating in it. I'm reading Cosmos and Psyche with my Patreon right now, and there's this line that we are participating in a living universe. You
Mm-hmm.
are participating in a living universe. And so, for me, it was when I first used a pendulum, told it to spin one way to stop and then spin another way, just out of sure,
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about it, helped me realize that there is no boundary between
Mm-hmm.
those two things. And I love that you give people all of the clear senses to tap into in a way that will work for them. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I think that is one of the biggest limiting things is whenever I talk to people and they're like, I just don't see anything. I'm like, cool. You don't have to. Like,
Mhm.
you're not required to see anything. And I think that media specifically has really messed that up in a lot of ways of being like, oh, clairvoyance is the way to be psychic. You have to see the future. You have to see past loved ones. You have to, see your guides, physically understand. And that's just not, it's just not it. Like there's so much more. And we're just like cutting off, over half of the world by just being like, must just see. Like that doesn't work that way. And we've talked about this extensively on here before, you guys know. But still, it's important, and especially we all forget it. We all forget it. I will still forget sometimes the senses where I'll be like, I'm rely on the ones that I'm comfortable with. And then all of a sudden my guys be like, not sending you anything through those senses. Good luck. And I'm like, great. Look at my other senses. That's right. I do have more of those. It just happens because we get comfortable with things, and humans, you know, I think are conditioned to seek comfort. I don't think initially that was what we would do. I think we saw not that, but I think at this point in time, we're conditioned to seek comfort above everything else. So it's very easy to get complacent even with your own psychic stuff. So I constantly remind you guys of this so that I also get the constant reminders, because it's all of our journey to pay attention to all our senses, and get more from there. And the cool thing is once you have the language element of it too, it never stops. It's not like I'm like, oh, you did it. You did 7 modules. Your dictionary's all done. Congrats. That's your language. That's not how that works. It will keep growing much beyond this. The whole goal of the course was just how can I give you just the foundational tools that I've used for years that have helped me so, so, so much. Not only just develop my psychic and intuitive abilities, but to like have my own personal dialogue with the universe, and be able to like I can literally send words to the universe now, or my symbols to the universe now, and then receive some back and be like, haha, look at that. Like we can communicate just really clearly that way. So yeah, I just wanted to put it into a system that you guys can actually use. And if you're like, oh, I really want that, I did have a Black Friday sale going. By the time this episode airs, that sale will be over for the general public. But if you would like to take advantage of that sale still, just because you listen to the podcast, you can go to my link tree. It's also on my website. Click on courses, go to Harmony of Echoes, and then use the code podcast at the checkout, and you'll get $100 off of the course, which is a very big discount.
Yeah.
So yeah, just for the launch and for me to say thank you to you all. So if you didn't get a chance to grab it during the Black Friday sale, I'm extending it just for podcast listeners. If it's something that you want to check out, like it's really, really has saved my life in so many different ways. So I just really hope it can do the same for you.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for being so awesome to the podcast listeners who are awesome for being listeners, which is great.
Yeah, you guys are the best. Thank you so much.
We automatically, when we're doing something, it's like, how can we make this good for the podcast listeners? And it's because you really are on the top of our mind all the time because we appreciate you. So this is
Yeah.
just another way that we get to thank you more tangibly. I was going to be doing something for around Black Friday, but the recording is not ready yet. So it's probably going to end up being like a New Year's or something, but it's on the way. So,
Oh, fun. Yes, I'm excited about it.
mhm.
Krista had a fantastic talk at Astromagia.
It
So
was
that's
fun.
what we're celebrating them for.
Yeah, yeah, it was a really good time. And one of my most admired mentors actually showed up.
Mhm.
And it's someone who's like books I reference all the time, I recommend all the time, all those things came to my talk, which was really, really
Mhm.
cool. And I actually get to go study with them in a couple weeks in Palm Springs, and I'll know that they'll know me, which is really
Yeah.
fun. And I'm very
No,
pleased.
that's amazing.
Mhm.
I'm so excited.
Talk about
That's
landmarks.
right. Like that's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge
yeah.
and
Will not
deserved.
stop geeking out. Thank you.
Deserved.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, since we're thanking our
Mhm.
podcast listeners, we have actually expanded one of the perks of our top tier of our Patreon.
Yay.
I think we talked. Did we talk about this? I don't
We
remember,
did,
but I'm
yeah,
gonna say
because
it
we had
again.
comments on the last video from last week or 2 weeks
Okay, good. Well, anyway, we've expanded it, so we're now gonna do quarterly calls, just hanging out
ago. Mhm.
with the top tier of our Patreon. So if you go ahead and check that out and join that, we would love to. We'd like to hang out with you and just. It's gonna be an hour. We're just gonna chat.
Yep.
Be,
Yep.
you know,
Talk about the
no,
energy of the moment, talk about the astrology that's going on, tap into stuff, whatever comes up and is meant to come up will. Yeah,
yeah,
and we'll
do
be
show
doing
and
that
tell.
around, yeah, we'll be doing that around the solstices and equinoxes. So that's how
Yeah,
you'll know when it's coming. Plus it'll
yeah.
be
So
on
just
Patreon. So
yeah. So just to drop that in there too, so everyone knows that's something we got going on. But yeah, yeah. It's a cool. Do you want to talk a little bit about the astrology of right now? Oh, by the way, Krista does have a bonus video on my course about finding symbols within your astrology chart.
that
So
I do. I'm very proud of it.
that is another fun perk of the course that you get.
Yeah, thank you for
Bonus
letting me
Krista
be a part
time.
of
Oh my
it.
gosh, absolutely.
Yeah. Um,
Thank
yeah, so
you
the
for contributing your wisdom.
I do my best. I have a whole school named after it, so I better live up to the name. So speaking of the astrology of the moment, as we are entering into December already, wow. We see that on the first day of December, Mercury goes into Capricorn and gets ready to retrograde. It's
Hmm.
about as flat as it's gonna feel too. So um we're gonna have a good time.
Glorious.
Yeah. So Mercury is already in pre-shadow by the time Mercury gets into Capricorn. So, coming out of detriment in Sagittarius and going straight into a pre-shadow in Capricorn to retrograde throughout the rest of December, it's a thing. Like December is showing us that it's a time to be slow. It's a time to
Hmm.
rest. It's a time to not overwhelm our minds. And it's a time to ground into the things that make us feel stable. And I think that that's a theme that carries in a lot of the aspects that are going to show up, a lot of the lunations that we're going to be dealing with. Let yourself have a holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate. Lean into it, feel it as deeply as you can, get into all of the magic that goes along with it, because not only have we collectively created magic this time of year, but there are seasonal things. We have the solstice on the way, which I'm just excited for. I know, like, as we're talking now, it doesn't feel like it's been that long since the equinox, but I miss my sunlight. So if you're like
Hmm.
me, we're leaning into this rest. This is the moment before the light starts to increase. And that's what we're supposed to be focused on right now. That's what nature's giving us. That's, the language of the universe as told by nature.
Hmm.
So you can communicate it in that way by doing what comes natural to you in those environments. As far as this week specifically, again, Mercury goes into Capricorn on the 1st, sextiles Saturn on the 2nd. We have a square between Venus and Pluto, which should be like pretty interesting. I'm wondering how that'll do with like artists and Hollywood at this period where we're asking for a lot of change and transformation
Hmm.
and, up leveling, because the day after Venus will go into detriment in Scorpio on the 4th. But then she automatically trines with Saturn. So hopefully she gets a little bit of support from that. And we see Neptune move direct. It's busy, you guys. Neptune moves direct, and then Mercury will trine Jupiter. So that should give us a little bit more oomph to our communication as well, or at least clarity, and the ability to see where we can find rest and next steps and all of that stuff. So yeah, pretty much a transit a day from the 1st of December all the way to the 8th. I will be doing skits on those to make them feel a little bit more accessible. But moral of the story is rest where you need rest, and hold the boundaries where you need to hold them. Give it to yourself without permission if you need to, when it comes to what you need.
Honestly, tech especially is going to be rough this Mercury retrograde. Just going to throw that out there. Like, I don't think it's going to be travel is bad for some reason. I think there might be some stuff there and, a little bit messy, but tech and communication really just, and like very, I'm going to call it the magical tech when I look at the energy of it. It's less like foundational tech, like plumbing and, that kind of thing, and more of like the stuff that we view a little bit more magically that we don't understand necessarily fully how it works. That's the tech that I see getting it. So we'll talk more about Mercury retrograde in upcoming episodes, I'm sure. But yeah, just go slow, feel the vibes. Yeah, it's so also like I personally always look forward to December because it is usually a month I give myself a lot of space to rest on purpose because it push for a lot of the year. So I always try to incorporate as much rest as possible into December, because it's a lot. It's a lot. So I highly recommend doing that in some way, even if you're just like, I don't know how I'm gonna rest, but I decided that every night for 1 hour I'm gonna do something that I just like, just because I like it. Like just doing something like that. Letting yourself not necessarily have the constant structure and constant responsibilities and all these sort of things. Like let some little things go so you can have some space for you to exist too. I think it's really, really important right now. So Mercury retrograde in December is definitely going to make you sit on your ass. So have fun with it.
Well, and lean on the people that you can trust. In Unmasking Autism, there's this really great chapter on friends called Strawberry People. And it's like you go through your phone and the people that you can be fully yourself with, you put a little strawberry emoji next to them. And those are the friendships that you nurture. Like you reach out to them and you maintain that relationship because it's the person that gets you. And if you have any strawberry people in mind, or you're looking for your strawberry people to cite the book, it's a good time to just be checking in with them too. It's a blessed time of year where we're all looking for magic, but it's also a time of year where loneliness can creep in. So it's a great time to be able to initiate that check-in if it's something that you're thinking of.
That's part of the reason we scheduled Sacred Spaces for January, like the conference for January.
So, like, let's get people
because
something happy.
yeah, it's so that you can look forward to stuff, and it's a community thing. You can find community there and connection there and friendships in that space that let you be like strawberry people that let you truly be yourself. We've seen this work so real time with all of our trips that we've been on with people and with the cohorts we've had with Forgotten Storytellers and everything. It's such strange feeling to be like, oh, I can completely 100% authentically be myself right now, and like everyone's all about it. Like no one's going to judge anything at all, because there's not a lot of cultivated safe space like that any of us have ever really been in ever. So it's truly an honor and super cool to get to cultivate that for you so you can have that safe space within this conference sphere, and just meet people and hang out and have good vibes all the way around. So that was the other reason though, is because it can get kind of isolating, especially if you're someone who wants to celebrate more of a spiritual holiday, or maybe doesn't really want to do stuff with family around the holidays, or maybe there's just different stuff there. That's why we put that out just like the next month. So you have a little life raft if you want to come to the conference.
And we'll be there. So you'll be what we're looking forward to. It'll be really great to meet everybody and again, find even more strawberry people. And it's always nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So excited. Well, it's also a bookend.
Yeah.
So
already,
what books have you read this month, Krista?
Well, I have been very focused on a particular book. So I'm going to lightly mention that I did finish up the Botanist Guide to Parties and Poisons by Kate Kavari. It was really nice. I liked it. In some cases it often passes the Bechdel test, which is cool.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, right. there's a lot to it that I enjoyed. It's not quite going to end up on my bookshelf because it wasn't the thrill like something like Emily Wilde's, but it was good. And if you're into like Agatha Christie and studying like Cambridge academia kind of level stuff, I highly recommend it. Definitely worth a read. There is a second one. I think I accidentally read the second in the duology, but they stand alone really well. So I had no idea until I was like, oh, you keep referencing this thing. I probably missed it. But it was great. The writing is really great, all of that stuff. Highly recommend, like I said. And then what I have been very focused on, and it's been taking me a while because I'm doing my best to give it all the attention it deserves, is Aspen Bassett's book, The Crimson Clover, which we are currently publishing through Ninth House. Em and I are doing the beta reads. I am nearly done. I think I'm in the final third of the book, and I've been taking it slow so I don't miss anything. But it's got some really cool aspects to it, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I am also very, very deep into reading Aspen's book, my God. And I highly recommend it. If you would like to support Aspen's publishing journey, please go check out her social media. On TikTok, she's fabulous. And then you can also help her crowdfund for her next tier of the publishing process. Please do. We're really excited to recommend the book to you once it's done.
And the cool thing is, the next tier is sensitivity read. Aspen's taking on a topic that is incredible, that is very like an activist topic. And she's doing it in a really graceful way, but she's also doing it wanting to be as conscious as possible. And so we are going to be, giving this book to beta readers who also can do sensitivity reads. If you are someone who is a sensitivity reader or knows someone, feel free to send us an email. We'll definitely keep it in consideration. But it's so important for Ninth House as a publishing company and for Aspen as an individual and as an author that we have this integrity in the story, and are sending positive messages and helpful ones. So I think that that's another really cool thing that, one of my favorite things about supporting Aspen right now is supporting the activism that Aspen represents.
Yeah. And I will say it is, it's the vibes, in case you guys are wondering what the vibes are, because I don't want to in depth talk about like what the whole book is about, because it might shift because we're in this beta reading process.
And she does a great job of it on her Kickstarter or GoFundMe.
Exactly.
On her GoFundMe page.
Yeah. GoFundMe is something else.
Indiegogo.
Yeah. It was like,
she's on Indiegogo. Okay. Look up Aspen Bassett or Crimson Clover. Go to her website or her Instagram or any kind of social. Her link tree will have it. She does a good job explaining it.
But I'm not going to. I'm going to let her have that privilege. But what I will say is it has a like whodunit vibe with activism all thrown in. So it's like a very modern take on whodunit. And it's cool. It's got some really cool like energy about it. There's magicians. It's neat.
Yeah. Mentalists, which I think is a really cool, a really cool distinction. I really like it too. Yeah.
So cool vibes. Anyway, we're really excited about that. I've also been reading that. I am not as far in as Krista has been because I've been working on this course for you all. But I be done with it by the end of November. When you guys are listening to this, I'll probably be done. So really stoked. Really, really stoked on it. Cool. I have been still reading the Stormlight Archive.
I think that's next on my list. A friend of mine sent me some merch this week, including the little oyster that I've been dying to get, but also a really cool bag that is of Stormlight.
Bridge 4.
Yes, Bridge 4. And I was like, what is this? Because I'm going to have to get into it. And it is from Stormlight. So I will be getting into that now.
Every time I read a Brandon Sanderson book, I become a better author. And I can say that with like all of my soul.
Yes, agreed.
It's incredible. And it's absolutely channeled in. And I felt this with Mistborn reading that. I was like, how the fuck did you come up with all of this? Like, and like the level of character development and characters you think mean nothing end up meaning all these huge things and just like all of these things. And you're never going to see, if you see one or two of the twists, like pat yourself on the back. Like if you're like, I guessed that, awesome. He always sprinkles those in. So you get that high of like, I totally guessed that. And they are 5% of the twist that will come through, of the like reveals that will happen. Like, so not massive. And I honestly, most of this year I read standalones because I was like, I'm not really going to do series. And I started this with Weston, and I'm really glad I have. It's incredible. It's so good. It's so good. I don't feel the same like I Mistborn has a special place in my heart because it came to me when I needed it, and I don't have necessarily that feels. But oh my God, I'm so connected to so many of these characters. And I won't say who, because if anyone's going to read it, then you'll know more about their story just because I mentioned them and I'm 3 books in, or 4 technically if you count the novella that I read. But yeah, so I've finished book 3 and into book 4, actually technically into the novella because it goes book 3, novella, book 4. Um, and it's really, really, really good. It has one of the best like found family vibes that I have seen in a really, really long time,
Yeah.
because it's not found family where you're like, these people already existed and then one character joined and now that's that character's found family. You know what I mean? Like they already were a group and then this one character joined and like now they're a found family, which I think is a lot of the times what happens with found family tropes.
Mm-hmm.
This series is not, it's not that. It is truly like they forge this
Mm-hmm.
found family. And it's just it's really cool. Plus the way that they communicate with creatures in their world called Sprin, very, very accurate, and um, kind of between like fairy and spirit guide energy, and how like magic works with Stormlight is very on par with how a lot of that actually works. So it's been really cool to read it. Anyway, it's really good. He's the king of payoffs.
Yeah.
every single time, every single one of these Stormlight books, we get to a spot, and I'm just like, okay, what's gonna happen? And then it just pays off so well every time. It's so good. So anyway, I've been enjoying it. It's been super fun. It's also a book that is different enough from Aspen's book that allows me to not
Mm-hmm.
conflate the two or do anything like that. So that's also like kind of intentional in that space also, which has been cool. But yeah, recommend Brandon Sanderson. Loved everything I've ever read of his ever. So, and at this point, I've read a lot.
Yeah.
I've read all of the Mistborn first trilogy. Have 3 books of the Mistborn second one, because there's 4 technically. I haven't read the 4th one because it just came out. Then I've read these 4 books. Then I've read multiple of the Secret Projects. So and it's
Yeah.
really good. I was like, how much have I read? Hold on, let me count it down. Anyway, it does take a little bit of like commitment to dive into. And if you want to get started reading Brandon Sanderson, please start with Mistborn. Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a
please.
great gateway drug.
Final Empire is just
Oh,
chef's kiss.
yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, that's what I've been reading. It's been nice. It's been it's been a really good reading year. I'm really excited to do our like recap episode before New Year's of
Mm-hmm.
like favorite books that we read, and also like,
It's been a
you know,
year.
you
Yeah.
know, no.
Like, I'm
It's been a
thinking back
really
on
good reading
what I
year
was
for me,
reading back in January and stuff, and it's like, wow, we've come a long way.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of that, the second Emily Wild comes out in January. I'm
I
so
know.
excited.
Literally, I'm like on the verge of buying every edition of the first one that I can, just because if I had to pick a book that I would want to read again for the first time, it would be that one.
Mhm. It's so
Just,
good.
I'm so in it. So I can't wait.
It's so good. There's a couple different books I'm just really excited
Right?
for them to release.
Yeah.
Yeah. The second House in the Cerulean Sea. If we've
Mhm.
recommended that book, if you've gotten our recommendation, first of all, if you haven't read it, read it. I love it. I love House in the Cerulean Sea so much. So much. So please read that. If you have read it and you're like, oh, I love it so much, guess what? There's gonna be another one. It didn't need another one. It didn't need another one,
No,
but
no,
there is another one, and it's
I'm here
if
for it.
yeah, I trust him to do it well.
Hmm.
So I'm excited. Anyway, stoked. And there's a character that gets introduced in like the last 5 pages of the first House and Cerulean Sea book, and I'm really excited if they do more with that character because I think it'll
Hmm.
be really cute.
Yeah.
Anyway, so exciting things happening next year. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you guys for being here. We really appreciate you. Again, if you want to take advantage of my course, you can go to my website. It's listed on there, and use the code podcast at checkout.
Mhm.
And you get the $100 off,
Yeah.
which is pretty significant. And I don't usually put my courses and stuff on sale. I usually do like maybe one sale a year. So it won't happen again later this year. It's not going to be a thing until maybe next year this time if I want to do that again. So just so you know, if you're like, oh, but there's going to be a better one later, there's not. I don't do sales. So just gonna put that out there too. Yeah, thank you all so much. We appreciate you. And so we hope that you take all this very slow energy and you
Go
go
make
make
some
some
magic.
magic. I don't think that was a good one. I don't think so.
Because sometimes we crack each other up before we get into it. And what are you going to do?